Well, I have our book here, and this is all articles on the trip that was in the papers and stuff. This is stuff I saved, you know, and it's many years already, so. And here's one of the jackets we wore. We didn't wear this too much out on the ice. When it was good and cold, we wore something different, but this is the jackets we wore. Well, that's our logo and some other details. And these are articles on magazines that were wrote on the trip. And there's quite a few good articles in them. We don't want that on Bill Cooper, do you?
Well,
Well, this is all stories on Bill Cooper. But these are all articles. In fact, all these are on Bill Cooper. All the things he was supposed to have done. And there's so many articles in here. Well, here's a good one here. Well, it's all here because like I said, he was my brother-in-law and I haven't seen him, so he just appeared real fast like.
I don't remember what year he bought the squirrel cage bar, but I knew him. We were good friends. I wouldn't say he was my best friend, but we were good friends. Yeah. No, most of those old timers that knew Bill, you know, they're mostly gone now. Last year we were out in the mountains in Arizona on our ATVs. And I met a guy that knew Bill Cooper. And I didn't say a word. Now, I wanted to get all I could out of this guy before I admitted that I knew Bill Cooper. So I started asking him questions about Bill. Then he told me, yeah, he said, I seen Bill a couple years ago. I've had other people say they've seen Bill. I asked him, did you talk to him? No, he said, I didn't talk to him. Well, then you know right off the bat that, yeah, you've seen somebody that looked like Bill, but you didn't see Bill. I'd hate to, probably it's a good thing you don't know what happened to him.
Bill did absolutely everything he could to be a good father. He did that at the same time being exactly who he was, because you can't change your personality. I think that some of that wanderlust kind of wore off on me, if you will. And I've always been a dreamer. I've always had high goals and believed that my life could also be extraordinary. And I think that's probably something I got from Bill. I think he had fantastic dreams about his future, although he never told them out loud. He lived his life in a way that I've got these phenomenal things that are going to happen. I don't know what they are, but if I keep going, I'm going to make them happen. So it seemed kind of like natural for this man who always thought bigger than life that, oh, we could take snowmobiles. We could actually go to the Arctic. And could we go across the Arctic and end up in Europe someplace? I mean, it was a totally fantastic dream that became, you know, a reality.
You know, I really didn't know what to think of him. Had his big black beard, and he looked at me and said, you know, do you want to go to the North Pole? And I said, tell me more.
Well, I don't know. We were just sitting over at Willow River there, and Bill Cooper is my brother-in-law, and they started talking about it. So we thought, well, let's try it. So we did.
The story I got that Bill was sitting in a tavern somewhere, and Plaisted was bragging about having gone to the North Pole by snowmobile.
Ralph Plaisted, the Air Force actually picked him up there. I think about 1968, I believe, and he was really the first person to ever reach the North Pole on a snowmobile.
And Bill's response was, well, if I was going to do that, I'd start in Minnesota.
See, when Placehead went to the pole, this is where they worked out of Alert.
Right.
And they just made that little hop up there. Grandma could have done that.
Yep.
No, it was not a,
No big deal.
no.
They'd taken all their gear up to Ellesmere Island and jumped off there and went the 300 miles to the pole. And Bill said, I can make a long trip out of this. I'll start in Minnesota. In fact, I'll go around the world.
Well, that was the goal, to go from Forest Lake, Minnesota to Russia.
And why?
To make a movie, do whatever, you know.
Well, we were going to start in Minnesota, travel up through Canada, between Ellesmere Island and Greenland, and then we would go down through Norway, Sweden, Finland, and into Russia to Moscow. Now, provided we were successful with that part of it, we would then go across Siberia and come back by way of Alaska.
There was a lot of debate about could we actually make it all the way on snowmobiles. The idea was, let's get there and see what it looks like. That's the way Bill kind of operated anyway, you know, building things as they happen. If it's open water, we got to call a plane and we'll do it that way. But otherwise, we were going to go on snowmobiles all the way.
Nick, what are you looking at here? What is this thing?
That's another expedition that Bill Cooper went on.
He told me about the preliminary trip, the trial trip that they took to Alaska.
We rode up to Alaska in 14 days.
He had all the clippings. He was real. I mean, this had happened.
This is Bill Cooper. This is Frank Larson. This is me. And this guy here, he was just standing around so he had his picture taken.
And I thought, well, seems legit.
But he could talk anybody into almost anything.
Yeah, he was a talker.
He didn't have to convince me very hard, unfortunately.
He had asked me if I wanted to go, and of course I shouldn't have went, but I did anyway.
Well, first they did the trip to Anchorage. They didn't even get through with that, and Bill started talking about going around the world on snowmobiles, and I just laughed it off. I thought, well, he talks, you know. Just told him that I thought it was a dumb idea, you know, that he should get somebody else to do it. Then he'd just laugh and say, oh, you'll make it. You're a tough Norwegian. Oh.
There was a lot of work putting this stuff together. And of course, you need a lot of cash.
He had to talk somebody into getting this money to go on this trip, you know. Where did he get it? I don't know.
Because it was pretty far out, you know. We're going to take a bunch of snowmobiles and we're going to go around the world with them, and you want to be part of it.
I'm sure we gave him snowmobile suits and we gave him boots and goggles, lots of goggles. And it was kind of like giving a kid a credit card in a Kmart store. I mean, he just kind of walked up and down the aisles and said, geez, I could use some of these, I could use some of that. Can I have some of this? Can I have some of that?
You have the record, right? The 45?
It's in here someplace. Here it is. Well, Bill and his scheme, I'll say.
Oh, you convinced someone to write a song about him.
I know.
You can convince anybody of
Oh,
anything.
You ever been
That
in a
was-
car knowledge?
They left the Willow River on a cold winter morn. A new breed of heroes was about to be born. This 7-man team on their ski mobiles, led by a lot of grit and a man called Wild Bill.
It had a kind of a circus atmosphere about it, taking off in Willow River, with all the people and all the stuff going on. And I mean, it's a small town.
They had an attraction. Somebody went inside of a little wooden makeshift coffin and blew himself up. And that was the kind of things Cooper would do, just to attract attention. And I never could understand what was the connection between that and a snowmobile trip. But apparently it brought people there. In the back of his mind, they would buy beer and watch us leave.
We're going to Moscow on a tour of goodwill. We're going around the world on our ski mobile.
You know, I remember it as it was like you were never going to see him again.
You know, you watch them leave and they're heading out, and yeah, you know, they took off and all you could see was the backs of the sleds, and it was really snowing hard. It was a rough, cold, snowy day. So yeah, it was.
Ready?
Yep.
It takes a lot more than just plain skill to make a trans-world trip on a ski-mobile. It takes a lot of guts, sweat, and steel to leave a good job and follow a dream.
That's Canadian Customs. That was out of War Road, wasn't it? I don't know how he talked his way across there with all that stuff, but he did. We never went in. He's the one that did all the talking, and
We had everything pretty well prepared. We had all the serial numbers written down on all the machines and guns, and so you're not allowed a handgun in Canada.
But did you guys bring one?
Yeah,
What happened?
it got it taken away from us. Oh, by the RCMP?
Did he try to talk his way out of that?
I don't know for sure, but I know he didn't have it, because that's absolutely against the law, a handgun. The Mounties, they didn't like us.
But again, we did this, and it was fine as we went through Minnesota, hit Winnipeg, and it was all fun, and all the crowds are greeting you. And it was great going across Manitoba and stopping all those little cities and little towns and stuff. And, we were kind of like folk heroes, if you will, going across there. And we were welcomed at every single one of them. We had a fabulous time. But, once we hit Thompson, and there's no more roads, so we're following the railroad track. And it's incredibly cold. I mean, it's bitter. In that cold environment, it becomes about survival. It took about 1 day to learn that.
It was so darn cold, nothing worked. Everything was broken. Every mile, something happened.
The sleds we had all manufactured in Minnesota just fell apart between Thompson and Churchill.
Running on railroad tracks is goofy, and we couldn't get off the tracks because out there was just bog. The snow was deep and soft, and we'd have just been stuck up to our necks. So we had to stay on the grade. After I was on it a few weeks, I realized maybe this isn't totally organized like it should be, but make the best of it. I doubt anything is perfect when you're really into it.
The night we came into Churchill, it was about 70, 75 below straight temperature. And the wind up there never stopped, so I have no idea what the wind chill was, but it was just like unbelievable. There was a small military base in Churchill, and Major Patterson was the individual in charge at the time. He was very anxious to help us and give us basic tips.
Some of them were just BS. How to dress, for cold weather. Or you're supposed to dress light so you don't sweat and all this crap. That didn't work.
Here's a trained professional, who in Arctic survival, and he's got these naive Americans gonna go off into the Arctic? I mean, he thought we were crazy, but he was delighted at the fact that we were doing it, And he taught us a lot of things about that. He also introduced us to tutu.
An old Eskimo showed us how to make Comatex, which are the native sled, and they were flexible so they could go over the bumps and the drifts without cracking. And they lasted the entire trip.
That really saved our life, spending time with him and building the new equipment and stuff like that. It really saved us. We never would have made it with the equipment that we had.
And then we went from Churchill to Eskimo Point.
The first time we actually camped on the Hudson Bay ice out of Churchill, And we opened our sleeping bags and realized that these sleeping bags were not the ones we ordered. You know, we ordered Arctic bags, but somebody sold our Arctic bags and substituted, you know, these 3-pound bags, down bags. They were totally inadequate for the temperatures we were under.
Well, we started with one man in a bag. You know, everybody was very reserved the first night. That lasted one night.
Yeah, who was it that said they'd never sleep with another guy? Who was that, Bill Jutland?
Bill Jutland.
Yeah.
And then we agreed that since we froze the previous night, that we needed to get these bags zipped together.
He was happy to.
You changed your mind. Lynn.
Hey guys, can I crawl in with you?
Yeah.
But Cooper was also pretty practical. I remember telling him, oh, Jesus, I wish I wasn't here. Why am I here? I should have never done this. He looked at me and said, everybody has to be somewhere. And walked away. Here you are, dude. Live with it. It was a good life lesson, too. Quit your bitching, move on.
But then we went from there to Rankin Inlet. We stayed there a few days, and that was pretty nice town.
When we hit Rankin Inlet, we were warned that going north was impossible because north of there was open water. And it wasn't just open water, it was almost like a whirlpool, but somehow this water was very turgid, and so the ice around it was all breaking up, and you never knew when it was safe or when it wasn't. And so their advice was to head across land to Baker Lake. And I told Bill, I says, listen, you know, we have the sextant, okay, and I can shoot a sunshot because we're on Hudson Bay. It's a coastline. You can always tell where you are east and west. I said, if we leave the ice, then the navigation is out the window. It's going to be very suspect and very hard to locate our position on any map. You can't recognize any topographical features. You have a map, but everything is snow and ice. They debated back and forth both ways, and they decided to go to Baker Lake across land. From then on, the journey became 10 to 100 times more difficult, more arduous, and more dangerous in that we most often had no idea where we were.
I didn't have a clue where in the hell we were. I didn't have a clue.
Many times during the day, we would just stop, and Bill would just go out and stand up on his machine and look. And we'd watch him, and he would just stand there, and he would just look for like an hour.
Sometimes he'd jump on a snowmobile and say, I don't know where the hell we are, but let's go this way for a while.
You know, you could ask him why if you wanted to, but he would just say the same answer because that's where we're going. I don't know if he had any idea where he was going.
We were always lost. We were always lost.
We trusted him as we had no one else to trust. Bill Cooper grew up in northern Canada, was on his own since he was 13, and outdoorsman his entire life. He could navigate just by sense.
Bill had a kind of an animal instinct in navigation.
He would tell this story. When I was young, my mother would pack my lunch in a road map. And it took me till I was 13 years old to figure out what that map was for, and that's when I left home.
Well, he had a rough upbringing. He, right from childhood.
He ran away at 13 and lived on his own ever since then.
See, Bill wasn't a very big man. He was a little taller than I am, probably a little huskier, but tougher than a bugger. I mean, he was one tough guy. With me, I wouldn't want to fight him. I'll tell you what, if we'd have gotten in the fight, we'd have both known we were in a fight.
During the course of the expedition, I discovered things that were bothersome. At that time, we bought a dog, and the dog wouldn't get on the sled. Cooper put it on the sled, took off, jumped off. He put it on the sled. He did this 3 times. Then he took off and dragged it by the neck for a half a mile. and the dog is bouncing in the snow, and then he stopped. And the next time we took off, that dog was on the sled and never got off. That's how Cooper was. He could be a very hard man when it came right down to it.
There were some things that gave us guys doubts about getting there. One of the things that kept happening is we kept running out of fuel.
Gas was a major problem.
You had a whole lot of gas to get there.
It was just never enough. Churchill to Eskimo Point, we ran out of gas. Going to Baker Lake was very, very difficult. And we ran out of gas. So Bill and Dick took all the gasoline and put it in one machine, and they took off to find gas. And they ran out of gas themselves.
We were gone, what, 6 days? We slept right on top of the ground, just a little blanket over the top of us.
Now, mind you, we were in the middle of nowhere. And the next morning, they are awakened by a dog barking.
Happened to look out on the ice and seen people coming. We thought we were seeing things, you know, mirages, because you do see them out there. Here it was this Eskimo and his wife and the kid, and they couldn't speak English. So we drive on the snow and stuff, you know, we wanted to go back where this little church school or whatever it was on the river there. We wanted to get there. That's where the snowmobile was.
And they loaded up with lots of gasoline, and they went back and filled up their machine. They brought gas back to us. He literally saved our life, that guy did. And we took off again. But we still haven't found this gas cache to get us the rest of the way. Now, by now, we're out of food. It's over 2 weeks. I came across another guy named Luke Aquila. Now, Luke was a trapper. He only had one eye. Through his grandson translating, he's telling me all these stories of living up there, you know. And the village was being really harassed by a really wild pack of wolves. So he started trapping these wolves. And finally, he caught this gigantic black wolf in his trap. And so he was going over there to do away with this wolf with a harpoon, and he got clawed by this wolf, and it tore out his eye. But he managed to do in the wolf. I sat there for, you know, a couple of hours in this tent, listened to this old man and this child just tell me stories of their living in the Arctic like that. And it was just a wonderful time. He did also, though, give me some food. So I was able to bring back some more food for the guys. They thought I got lost, you know, of course.
I've often thought how lucky we were. We never had a serious injury.
We're tough.
We're lucky.
That helped. On a day-to-day basis, I wouldn't say it was dangerous. There were moments that were dangerous. Thin ice, running low on food. What if we would have never seen the Eskimo? You know, we'd be there as skeletons now. But those things never happen. But it was close.
At a certain point, it was very clear we weren't going to make it all the way. I think by the time we had Joe Haven, we all knew we weren't going to make it, you know, but we had to keep going. If you look at the map, there's a nice track between Arctic Ocean islands that goes right up to Resolute Bay from Joe Haven, but it's also prime polar bear country. So we had to go right through it.
I was terrified because I had never seen a polar bear, and of course the Eskimos played it up, you know, all these stories circulate in your head, and then lo and behold, there's some polar bear right in front of you.
We didn't have enough gas to go from Joe Haven to Resolute Bay, so we had a gas drop. And all of the barrels had been knocked over, and I swear half of our oil cans had been bitten into by the bear. But also right there was a seal blowhole.
What the bear does, when the seal comes up, he's waiting there. Bang, he's got him.
And there was fresh blood. So that meant there was a fresh kill right there. I mean, really fresh blood. That was a tense night as you sleep in. Everybody had their rifles ready and stuff like that, and the dog was there. And
well, the dog was, you know, would sleep. So you're wondering if the polar bears are outside, and you just hear this dog snoring.
We never had an incident that night, thank God. We did see, I think, either the next day or we saw two or three bear in that area.
They just run as fast as you were going, so they just run off and get off to the side and they're gone.
We made our last day or so run from Resolute to Devon Island. And I'm not sure why he wanted to leave Resolute, because it was a settlement, there was a school there, there was, big transport planes, these heavy transport planes moving. I thought a logical place to store your equipment, but Cooper wanted to get out of there. So we went across sea ice to Devon Island.
Now the islands are further apart, and you got big expanses of ocean ice, and you got major fissures and cracks in the ice opening up, and we were all ready to go home about then, We knew it was over. It was just, we weren't going to make it. And so why are we pushing on? Well, we were still following Bill Cooper, and it wasn't time to quit.
When done Devil's Island there, it was starting to melt, so you couldn't go any further if we wanted to, so we just parked the machines up on a hill, left them there.
We took, I think, one or two home for display purposes, but everything else was packaged up, covered with tarps on Devon Island.
It was probably a beautiful photograph, but I don't know, at that particular time, it wasn't a happy occasion.
We called the aviation company in Resolute, and they sent an otter to pick us up.
It was kind of a dull feeling, if you will. We were abandoning our project, if you will, going home.
And boy, that was a takeoff I'll never forget.
I didn't think that plane ever got off the ground. I mean, bouncing on the ice out there, it's just pulling away and stuff like that. And
finally it lurched into the air and off we went.
But we made it back. We made it back into Resolute Bay and caught a commercial jet.
Anyway, when we left Resolute, the bear hunters had just come in, and they had, I remember it was 2 or 3 polar bear carcasses.
And Bill really wanted some kind of souvenir of a polar bear.
And Bill wanted them heads.
He had talked one of them, or probably bought it or something, he bartered something. He bought a polar bear head, okay? And he had it in a plastic honey sack, a plastic bag.
So we got to Montreal. We had about an 8 or 10 hour layover.
We went to the airport, and Bill says, well, let's put all our stuff in the lockers here, so we don't have anything. What are we going to put in a locker? We said, well, I have some stuff. So he put some stuff in one of those lockers. You put a quarter in and get your key, right? And we go to bed that night because our flight's out the next morning. So the next morning, we go to the airport, right? And Bill walks towards these lockers, and we all look over there, and there's a big pool of blood on the ground, on the floor, and a trickle of blood coming out of this locker. The polar bear head was frozen, and it had unfrozen.
I imagine some airport worker had to clean it up and open it up and see
I'm
what
sure
they
they'd have to. They'd see that blood running out, they'd be right
I
there.
wonder what they expected to find in that locker when somebody opened it up.
Don't even mention it.
So, needless to say, nobody went near that locker, including Bill, and we got in the plane and left.
And then they came into the cities, and they looked just horrible. You could hardly recognize them.
It was just really bizarre after spending so much time with the indigenous people, and all of a sudden we were back in commercial America. And it was like a real shock.
I was wearing quilted underwear for pants, carrying a rifle. How did those people allow that?
You wouldn't get too far today, would you, Frank?
Walking through the airport in Minneapolis carrying a rifle and looking like a wild man from Borneo.
Well, I had assumed that he was going to stick with it till they got to Moscow.
We figured we could make it that same year, but we couldn't do it.
I think he told people in Resolute Bay, well, we parked and we're going to come back next year. But I think every time he said that, we looked at each other like, we'll see about that. Who knows what can happen a year later and everything else that's going on. Who could tell? But it was amazing. They put it together again for a year or two, and took off. So God bless them.
Bill finally came up with some cash or whatever and went back.
The expedition was very complicated personally because I wasn't just a guy on the expedition, I'm also related to Bill. So I said no to the second year. And my main interest then became, well, let Wild Bill be Wild Bill, but I need to be Rob Goodman.
When I discovered how parts of the expedition had evolved behind the scenes, I just couldn't be there on the next trip.
All along the way, before we hit the Arctic, there was a lot of strict Canadian rules. And how many had we broken being out there in the tundra for all that time? I don't know.
There were fuel caches in the Arctic that were placed there by the Canadian Air Force.
It was terrible smelling stuff, but you could burn it in the snowmobiles.
And if you are in trouble, there's no problem taking fuel as long as you notify who it is that owns the cache and replace it.
Bill said he'd paid him for it, but I don't know if he did or not.
But there I was, pumping it right into my snowmobile so I could get out of there and trusting that the expedition would replace it. Consequently, I didn't go on the second leg, the second year. I just didn't feel comfortable.
I heard about it through a mutual friend of Bill's. Bill was just looking for somebody, so they needed another still guy. And I happened to be there, and I was a friend of a friend, and I'm sure that always has something to do with it. And when you need somebody, you need somebody. It seemed like too good an opportunity to pass up. Chance to go up north where a lot of people have never been. I gave it some thought. Yeah, I did. I'm going, geez, But we seem to have all our bases covered. Nothing is ever what it seems, I guess. How we started, we took a bus with all of our gear and people up to Edmonton, I believe it was, and flew out of there, direct to Resolute. And from Resolute, it was just hop, skip, and a jump over to Devon Island, where we had the machines entombed from the year before.
Them dang bear, they'd tipped them snowmobiles upside down, tore the seats off, broke the windshields, tore that pile of parts and supplies apart.
So there was a little bit of damage, but we got them all running, took off from there.
When we left Ellesmere Island, it was only 35 miles across to Greenland. The ice had blown out, and it was freezing.
So we went out there, and the ice was about that thick. And it was black as the ace of spades. So we took a vote on it. Who's going to go? We're going to go or aren't we? Otherwise, we'd have to come back home. And they said, let's go. So the next day, we gassed all the machines up, hooked a couple of them together, and away we went. We never stopped until we got to the other side.
I'm sure if we'd have stopped, you'd have sank. But you could see every machine in front of you, you could see the wake. It's kind of rubbery, going just like you do in a boat.
And I don't think Bill had contacted the authorities there for permission. So we just kind of arrived off the ice, and they said, "What's this?" So they kind of put us in jail.
When we pulled into Kanak, Ole Sandberg, he said, well, these guys are all arrested. We didn't have no passports and nothing to get in there, so.
We'd have had to post like $30,000 explorer's bond in case we got in trouble, or else get out of Greenland.
We're not going to do that.
So Bill Cooper stayed there. He sent me back with the crew.
Okay, you guys, you're free to go back the way you came. But we didn't immediately go back to Canada because that would have been a step backwards. We headed north.
I think we were 7 days going 10 miles or 10 days going 10 miles.
We totally ran out of snow, carrying the machines, carrying our loads.
We had to carry all the gear. We'd go carry it about a mile, and then go back and get another load, and then we'd bring the sleds up because it was all solid rock.
And we were halfway shoveling snow to make a trail to run on, and halfway carrying the machines, and it went on and on and on and on. It's an extremely bad weather, and we were all pretty sure that Bill wasn't going to make it. Well, Bill finally did show up.
Well, I don't know really what the deal was. He never did tell us, but I found out afterwards he wrote him out a check for Ola Sandberg there in the village, wrote him out a check.
As it turned out, he didn't have any financing back in the States.
The check was no good, so I don't know if he just conned him. There's what your con deal is, you know. He must have conned him out of that money.
So it's a good thing we did leave.
We should have had our head examined, but we didn't. But
There were a lot of things I didn't know about until they got home.
We'd totally run out of food. Well, that's kind of like, well, now what do we do, fellas? Well, we have to go hunting, whatever there is to hunt. It's not a good feeling. You'll eat rabbits and you'll eat ptarmigan, whatever you can, but it's not a preferred diet. And there was a whole thing about Thule Air Force Base and being off limits. And
The American Air Force Base at Thule, we had parts shipped in there.
we were thinking we could be welcome there and resupply and that sort of thing. And
Some jerk colonel there, no, we weren't allowed on the base.
not only aren't you that welcome in Greenland, you're not welcome at all at your country's air base.
They thought we were terrorists before terrorists were known.
An expedition like that in the middle of nowhere, going really nowhere, the radio didn't even work. He couldn't have contacted anybody if he wanted to.
They thought that bunch of snowmobilers were going to destroy their missile systems, or I don't know.
we left Thule, Greenland. There's all about 1,500 miles of open water, unless you went further north up to Spitsberg Island and cut across, across went by Canada again. This is up in May now, I think it was. And the cracks is what was scaring me, because when you went across them with them sleds and all of a sudden they fall down, the snow falls down, everything's getting soft again, so you had to get out.
It was getting to that magical time when the sea ice was disappearing and a lot of open water was happening.
I was the last machine, and all of a sudden it opens up, they go across and it's just a hole is what it was, how big it was, I don't know. Mine, it went right down, they just bailed right off, it just went right through. And the next thing you know, there's nothing there.
And Bill finally faced up to the fact somehow that he had to call a halt to it. We weren't going to get to where we wanted to get to, and I don't know, financial problems. So he decided, well, it was time to make camp out on the ice, call in the airplane, and go back to the States, which we did.
In fact, when the plane come in to pick us up, he wasn't even lurid. He says, get in here and get out. He wanted to get out there right away. So we just loaded up 2 machines and our little bit of gear and come back to Resolute Bay.
That was it. That was the end of it.
I've seen country that I'll never see again, And who can say, how many people can say they snowmobiled from Minneapolis to Kanak and Thule, Greenland, and up to Alert, Nobody can ever say that. Well, yeah, we did a lot more than Place did. He just went to Ellesmere Island to the North Pole. That's just a couple hundred miles, We went over 5,000 miles from Minneapolis to practically to the pole.
Does it make you mad?
Pardon?
Does it make you mad?
No, no.
There were a lot of things that got accomplished, but it's still a failed mission because we didn't get to do what we set out to do. For sure, it's a failed mission.
It would have been a really wonderful thing to get there. You grew up in the Cold War, and you know the Soviet Union is the big bad bear and all that kind of stuff. But you know, to go there, I mean, we knew they were just ordinary people. If you get the politicians out of the way, you know, they go to the bar and have a drink, and they talk, and you know, they have children and go to school, and you know, this people. What it could have accomplished in terms of international bonding, it certainly would have been an incident. It would have been a positive incident. It would have been something else to talk about besides, you know, Cold War and Berlin and nuclear weapons and all of that stuff.
It would have been fun to get over to Norway. Them doggone Norwegian girls, they're the prettiest women in the world.
The plan after that was to fly into Hammershield, Norway, and take off and go from there.
Did it seem like you were going to go back for a while?
Well, it seemed like it, but that was early in the game. And it didn't seem like it for very often or very long. He got in trouble very quickly.
Well, that's when Bill Cooper started his rampage, whatever he was doing. That's when everything took place then.
Well, you mean the drug end of it?
It was really an open secret that he was hauling marijuana. All his friends knew. In order to cover some of his debts, he began to haul marijuana out of Mexico to Minnesota.
The Marijuana Air Force?
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that what they called it?
Well, they said he had 17 planes at one time. I don't know. See, in them days, it wasn't as sophisticated like it is now. That was pretty much a bunch of rogues doing it, you know.
Yeah, and that was the 70s. You know, it was everywhere.
If one guy could sneak in a load of marijuana, he made a pile of money, and I don't know. I don't know the drug business, but
I think maybe he needed a chunk of money or something, and he got started in this and he couldn't stop. I think the money was just too good.
Well, two things. He had an expedition going on that he needed big cash for, and his wife had some significant health problems. Bill didn't have any insurance, so he had to have the money. He just did what he had to do. Yeah, he was going to take care of himself, take care of his wife, and try to get us to Moscow.
Whatever he was doing, I don't know. It was a mystery. So I don't know. Everything went to heck after that. So that's the last I seen him. One day, and that was it. And the next thing I know, he's down in Arizona, and the FBI is looking for him. Everybody's after him, so I don't have the slightest idea.
I know we constantly had wanted posters on him, you know. There's certain criteria where either the heinousness of the crime or the dangerousness of the criminal or the number of states and jurisdictions that he crosses, all that criteria goes together to elevate them to a category of one of the 10 most wanted. That one by the U.S. Marshals is a pretty good poster there. Yeah, we had many of these on the bulletin board.
Well, you start adding it up when you're around with Bill, and here's a guy, doesn't have a pilot's license, but flies an airplane, and self-taught. And you know he could go anywhere and do anything that he wanted to do. So you kind of got to admire that.
Personally, I liked him, admired him. He had, I thought he was quite an individual. I mean, for a law enforcement officer to say that, you had to admire him for his courage.
I think he was good at what he did. He's obviously pretty good. He's never been caught.
He's turned into this sort of legend. He was good at manufacturing that sort of thing. He loved that idea. He loved the fact that he could be an explorer, and I'm sure he worked hard on his image. He was a cowboy.
Oh, sure. He's a folk hero.
And that's not uncommon, where someone who might be outside the law from time to time is looked at pretty well by the residents of the community. The old Robin Hood syndrome, where you take care of the poor, and you might have to cut some corners with government to do that, but you take care of the poor, and the people respond to that, so.
He owned the Squirrel's Cage Bar. I think he done a lot of good for Willow River, and that's why they liked him so well.
When you live in small towns, the bar and the restaurant, those are the local gathering places for social activity.
He was an interesting person. If Bill was attending bar, the place was full. He was a storyteller.
His whole life was theater. I mean, he was a big player on a big stage, or he wanted to be a big player on a big stage.
He'd bend over backwards to help you out, and he was good for the local people. What he did outside in the real world was his own deal.
They say he was in all of their parades. He'd come in disguise, of course.
No, it's kind of fun, though, that all those stories kind of creep up, isn't it?
Bill came to me one day and he said, they're after me because they think I am D.B. Cooper, that I jumped out of this plane. And he said, I didn't do it, but I can't, so far I haven't been able to come up with an alibi.
D.B. Cooper jumped out of the plane with $1 million, or was that $1 million?
It was 200,000.
200,000 would seem like $1 million back then.
We even discussed that amongst ourselves and with Bill.
Really?
And, no, sure. People are saying you're D.B. Cooper, Are you really? You can tell us,
There's one there, the Piper kidnapping and stuff, He was supposed to have been involved in that. Whether he was or not, I don't know. Of course, he was supposed to rob the Sturgeon Lake Bank, too, and I don't know if he did or not, neither. There's a picture of him there. One time he was supposed to have been in jail in Phoenix, and he talked his way out, and he disappeared.
Somewhere along the line, Bill was supposed to make a court appearance in which he had a prearranged plea deal.
The way I understood it, he had a judge that was going to be pretty lenient on him, and then they switched judges that was going to hang him.
His attorney called him the night before and told him that it fell through, and Bill disappeared, and we've never seen him since.
And he called Marion and said we wouldn't be seeing him for a while.
He disappeared. He literally disappeared from our entire family. No contact.
It's sad when someone just disappears like that and you never know for sure.
I'm not sure where Bill is or how he died or if he's alive, or I'd sure like to see him again.
Well, I'm curious, whatever happened to him. Of course, the FBI told me that time, or U.S. Marshals, when they were here, he says he's either in Mexico laying in the ground or he's in Canada running around. And that's what they told me, so I don't know.
I think he got killed in a drug deal that went wrong. That's my honest.
I'm sure I'll never see him again, whether he's alive or isn't.
Well, my best guess, he'd head for Canada. That'd be my best guess. Because he knew a lot of people up there and he was a survivor. Like I said, he could probably go out in the woods and live forever, But he's up there in age now, too, if he is alive.
After he disappeared, there were some newspaper guy or some radio somebody would say, oh, They heard that Bill Cooper was here or there, or a sighting or something like that, or somebody would start a rumor about something. I personally didn't think any of them held any water at all. I thought, if Bill's around, he'd call me.
Because there's always been rumors about Bill, and I don't believe in rumors. I just don't believe it. I think he's gone.
Oh, I'm afraid that if he was alive, he'd have made contact some way. In 30 years, you know, some way.
There you go. 1, 2, 3.
Well, what we're doing here today is getting this machine to run. It hasn't been run for over 30 years. It's the only survivor of the whole bunch. Yeah, we brought it home and it's been sitting ever since in the garage. So if these boys want to use it for a show here in Willow River.
You're supposed to smile.
Oh, well, let's take her for a ride. Oh, it's great. It's great just to ride it. The first time I rode it in 30-some years. These boys did a good job getting it running like they did. After sitting that many years, it's really amazing. It worked out real good. Well, Bill would be proud of that machine now. You want to call him up? Yeah, we'll find Bill and we'll let him ride it.
So do you know where Bill Cooper is?
No.
No.
Answer that quick.
Yeah. No, nobody does.
You're not hiding him anywhere?
No,
Oh.
even his kids don't know where he's at, so.
Huh. What would Wild Bill think if he was standing here?
He'd shake his head.
What are you doing that for?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, the fact that expedition is still legend in Willow River, it shows what an impact it had on that town. You know, that Bill Cooper's legacy lives on for a long, long time. You know, Wild Bill.
I mean, we've been getting together and racing like this since the mid-90s. We named it the Wild Bill 20 because of Wild Bill Cooper, hometown, what do you call it, a legend. They wouldn't call him a hero, I guess. It's an outlaw race is what it was, and that was the thing about it, you know. Another thing, Wild Bill being an outlaw.
You made her.
You betcha.
How the hell are you?
Good. So how many sleds you going to get out here?
You know, I'm not sure. I'm not racing. I'm just flagging it and helping Todd keep it going. And this is my oldest boy, Darren. This is Dick.
Well, pleased to meet you.
He was the one who rode that sled to Russia.
No, not to Russia.
Well,
Greenland.
Greenland.
It's still a ways.
Yeah.
Pretty close.
About 5,500 miles is all. Short trip.
Short trip.
Yeah.
Well, they've got a regular Wild Bill Racing Association
Yeah.
over here now. You know what would be neat is to get some of them stickers remade.
Yeah.
I had one of them on my bed stuck to my headboard, and I can't find the damn headboard.
But I still got my old stuff. I brought my jacket. And so it feels good. We're going to run that machine after a while, and we'll see how it does, just to take a few pictures and stuff. So we're not going to run it in the race, I don't think, unless somebody else wants to run it.
Has anybody contacted the Snowmobile Hall of Fame, Minnesota Snowmobile Hall of Fame of Grand Rapids? Because these guys really need to be inducted in that for what they did with these sleds. I was actually thinking of doing it myself because they didn't get any recognition for this. And you've got guys that have been successful getting to the North Pole and load their stuff in Resolute Bay. It's only 300 miles. These guys went 6,000 miles, man. You know?
I would hope that Bill might be smiling, either if he's here secretly smiling or in his grave going, yep, thanks guys, you know, he's living immortality.
You know, I think back on that and I wonder what the heck how did I ever get up the nerve to do this? Why would you do this? And I think I did it because I wanted to. And I think everyone else on the expedition did it because they wanted to. They had some reason to be there of their own choice. Nobody was forced into it. And once you're there, you just have to do it.
When I tell people about the snowmobile trip, you know, I can just see it in them, that somehow they romanticize it.
People want to listen or hear about it, and that's okay, but I don't know. It's just something, it's not that spectacular. We went a long ways. We had some fun. We had some hard times, but it was such a long time ago. It gets out of your mind after a while, you know.
In a way, it's like when you produce a wonderful piece of theater, you want to keep it forever, but you can't. It's not designed that way. Theater's designed, you experience it and then it just goes away. It's not like a movie. You have an extraordinary experience for a limited amount of time, but if you're not, that's not your life. You know, right now, you know, I'm in the theater. I run a theater for the past 22 years.
For quite some time, I did weddings in limited industrial photography.
We just got registered cattle. We just sell breeding stock.
I was foreman, supervisor for Crestline Tools, and I was put in about 18 years there, so we built snowmobiles too.
Early in my career, I was able to lever that experience into jobs. And, you know, it really kind of set the tone for what I like to do in the future. I did a lot of documentary work after that. Yeah, it was a big boost in the career. And it was, and I know I understood that going in. That's why I wanted to do it. And it turned out fine.
We had land here and we needed a place to hunt, so I built a deer hunting shack. And everybody loved it so much they wanted to come up here and live. This is home.
I tell you though, I'm going to be 75 now in September, so it's going to be coming to an end. Yeah, my knees are getting bad and it's time to quit maybe.
Then what are you going to do?
I don't know. Maybe do something stupid, huh?
What's it like seeing this stuff again?
Well, it makes me feel good. It looks like I'd like to do it again.
There aren't a lot of adventures available in the world. And if you're an ordinary human being, you don't get extraordinary chances very often. And Bill had this crazy ability to take ordinary, average people, just ordinary people, and give them this idea that they too could be extraordinary. You know, how else do you convince 6 guys who are ordinary people to leave their families for 4 months and decide to go on a snowmobile trip around the world? I mean, it's absurd when you think about it, you know?
How you doing, George?
There you go, buddy. How are you?
Good. How you doing, Frank?
George. Mr. Larson. Hi, sweetie.
George.
Well, it's good old times. At least we got something to talk about, fellas.
"65 below, bitter cold on the way, north through Manitoba, up through Hudson Bay. In the white hell of the Arctic, Greenland seems so far, 5,000 miles from a drink at the Squirrel Cage Bar. It takes a lot more than just plain skill to make a trans-world trip on a ski-mobile. It takes a lot of guts, sweat, and steam to leave a good job and follow a dream.